Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. Yesterday's satellite imagery showed front slowly moving eastward here and then stalling out with more of a southerly flow coming into the panhandle. We had a band of mid and high level clouds here sort of stuck across the southern interior, not really moving much, and a lot of moisture following in back behind. Sunshine up over the central and northern areas, and trough skirting the central Arctic coast. Low pressure here with moisture coming back toward the west into the southeast Bering Sea, and a front out there to the west starting to head in toward the eastern Aleutian, or the western Aleutians, with some gale force winds, which today continued to move, and this afternoon passing Shimei and Attu, just east of there. Southeasterly gales in advance of that, and a narrow band with rain. Looks like progressing all the way over to about AKwx. Very light amounts there, a little bit more heavier and moderate back to the west toward the front, and breaking out to showers behind. Otherwise, ahead of that feature, nothing but high pressure from the Chukchi Sea up here, down all the way across the Bering Sea, that center there just off the Russian coast, but ridging all the way down across the east central Aleutians, and some moisture right through here, kind of streaming northwestward due to an upper level trough that's back to the northwest that's swinging westward, and that actually resulted in some cloudiness and fog, areas of flurries up here along the Arctic coast. Nothing really significant, a little more extensive on the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, but wind-wise, not much at all. In fact, not much in the way of any wind up there in the forecast for the next couple of days. Otherwise, we had sunshine here from the eastern north slope down into the Koyukuk Valley, start picking up some clouds, cumulus building in the afternoon farther to the south, and then breaking out to more sunshine here over the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta. On into Bristol Bay, scattered showers along the Aleutian Range, especially Kodiak Island, pretty numerous there due to this trough right through here and that easterly flow, with showers even more numerous here across the southeast coast to just areas of rain, and then that diminishing as you head west along the coastline there and kind of scattered in across Prince William Sound. Kenai Peninsula, really hit and miss. Most of the shower activity here over the mountainous terrain, maybe the White Mountains in that area. But other than that, we're watching this trough here. We'll be continuing to move to the northeast. And for tonight, it probably will develop into a front, enough of a thermal gradient from the warmer air here to the east and the cooler air back to the west that that signified good enough signal to be a frontal system, although weak as it is. But that should increase the rain again along the coast, or the precipitation showers, especially the central and northern areas, and eventually into the south later tonight, or actually toward tomorrow morning, not really moving all that fast, with the main low center hanging back to the south and southwest here. About 1,002 millibars, really not much of a gradient associated with that at all. So we're looking at fairly light winds back up across Kodiak Island, and those northerly winds about over now. Barely a breeze here for the Alaska Peninsula. Isolated showers remaining, partly to mostly cloudy skies, with the partly cloudy conditions on the Pacific side of the peninsula, mostly cloudy on the Bering Sea side, and looks like pretty much clouds with not much in the way of any precipitation now back toward the Pribilofs. Could get some clearing there along the southwest coast, and ridging holding up here to the northwest, keeping kind of a dry northeasterly flow going for maybe some clearing there, Kotzebue Sound, down across the Seward Peninsula, and then this trough slowly coming eastward here. That keeps it cloudy with lower flying conditions, definitely, and some areas of light snow and fog to go along with it, but really not much of any accumulations in the forecast. Otherwise, over the interior, a couple of thermal lows right over the Tanana Valley area back to the west of the 40-mile country. And again, some showers mostly this evening over the mountainous terrain, scattered showers on down Nebezna into the Wrangell Mountains. And then this front looks like we're actually back out to the west. The other one weakens considerably, so you lose the gale force winds if they haven't stopped already here as it slides on into the AKwx area. And looks like a fairly nice evening back to the west with maybe some clearing. No change here for the eastern Aleutians. Light winds, variably cloudy skies. Otherwise, for tomorrow, the remnants of that front really weakening, but still a narrow band of probably just showers that could reach Nikolsky and definitely won't reach Unalaska or Dutch Harbor in those areas. Could see actually a few breaks in the clouds there. High pressure holding here from the Bering Straits all the way down, a couple of centers, 1,023 millibars there just north of Savunga, and another one just south of Nunivak Island or southwest of Kuskokwim Bay there, about 1,021. So light variable winds and areas of sunshine from the Alaska Peninsula right up along the coast into the northern Bering Sea. And back to the west again, not much. It's a low hanging back to the west there, not all that strong. Southwest flow, though, keeping bands of scattered showers rolling into the western areas from Atka on out to Shimia. And looks like a nice day here for Kodiak. Lose the showers probably tonight, partly sunny skies tomorrow, light winds, isolated afternoon showers there along the Alaska Range west side here, very isolated with partial clearing. A little bit more enhanced area of showers and convection now occurring from the eastern Alaska Range up across the 40-mile country to maybe as far north as Eagle. Could be some isolated thunderstorms developing tomorrow afternoon as well, and that front sliding eastward, weakening considerably here as far as precipitation goes, or really not much weaker than it will be when it moves in toward for tonight, but it'll be slow moving. Showers along the coast, a little bit more steadier type precipitation exiting in the afternoon, Prince of Wales Island, but over toward Annette, Ketchikan, and Stewart, back up to about Wrangell. Otherwise, up along the Arctic coast, that trough continues to slowly edge eastward, and it looks like a pretty extensive area of light snow will develop and occur from the eastern Arctic coast here across the Brooks Range. And probably whatever falls to the south will be mixed precipitation, possibly, and then that cuts off a little bit farther to the south. And moving on to the outlook for Wednesday, it looks like moisture moves off to the east here, so partly sunny skies with light winds for the southeast coast, North Gulf Coast, dry conditions, variable clouds, partly to mostly, maybe overcast around Prince William Sound or to the south, but showers again continuing here over the Copper River Basin, mostly from the Alaska Range up across the eastern Tanana Valley, again about the same area as in the forecast for tomorrow. And again, some possible isolated, maybe even scattered thunderstorms developing in that area. Back to the north, trough stuck there on the eastern Arctic coast with some areas of light snow and fog there, back in toward and on the upslope side, north side of the Brooks Range there. And again, probably not too much spilling south of there, and what does will probably be mixed, but sunshine here back to the southwest, closer to the high pressure area holding just northwest of Gamble. And so a lot of sunshine, light winds here for the Kuskokwim Valley, Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, and variably cloudy up to the north, but dry through here with that 1,033 millibar high now near the central Arctic coast. And another storm with the center staying to the south. It's going to bring a definite increase in the winds here, 25 to 30 knots. No gales in the forecast currently for Wednesday, but definitely see an increase in the winds. Had the low center move north of the Aleutians, then you'd definitely be seeing gales out associated with this front, but not quite getting the forcing here. But definitely rain spreading over the Fox Islands to even Unalaska, Dutch Harbor, extending back to the west, heavier around Adak and Atka, tapering off on out to the west. And gradually, winds Pribilof start out pretty light and variable in the afternoon as things progress a little bit there, becoming southeast, but right now nothing more than 10 to 15 knots. And for the southeast coast, as I mentioned, pretty nice conditions. So moving to the temperatures, it looks like upper 40s to lower 50s are ruled today across that area, 50 degrees both at Stewart and Kawak, 50 degrees also there at Petersburg, 47 Sitka, Skagway back to 50, mid to upper 40s along the North Gulf Coast to 51 degrees in Valdez, mid 50s here for Cook Inlet with 50 even Homer, 54 Kenai, Palmer, same temperature. A little milder, not quite making 60 at Talkeetna, at least at 4 p.m. 54 degrees over at Gulkana, and temperatures mid to upper 50s there for the central Tanana Valley on down to Northway at 59. But Eagle, though, pushed up to 64, and Tanana at 62. Fort Yukon, 60 degrees. Bettles, a nice 62-degree reading, down to 34 at Anatuvik. And the Arctic coast, mid to upper 20s, looks like just about everywhere. Cape Lisburne, though, only 23 degrees, as was Wainwright, or Point Lay, right there. And lower 30s here to 34 degrees at Deering, with Kotzebue and Kivalina at 33, 38 for Nome. Still below freezing there for Tin City and Wales, and even Savunga stuck at 29. Otherwise, McGrath had a nice 61-degree reading. Cooling off a little bit to 55 at Bethel. Of course, mid to upper 40s out along the coast. For the Pribilofs this afternoon, near 40 degrees, both St. Paul and St. George, as well as Shemya. 41 Adak, warm to 46 at Atka, and a 51-degree reading at Cold Bay. Mid-50s up across northeast Bristol Bay. For the lows tonight, above freezing here. Upper Yukon Valley to near 40 in the Tanana Valley, and that same temperature pattern all the way down to the North Gulf Coast, and upper 30s to mid to upper 30s for the southwest coast, into the Bering Sea near 40 for the Aleutians, staying chilly up along the Arctic coast and North Slope areas. For the highs tomorrow, across the Panhandle, lower 50s, warm area again here from the east central interior back down to the southwest coast, and that kind of helping support the convection going on, or build it there for tomorrow afternoon. And the Susitna Valley showing up here, warming up into the upper 50s to maybe near 60. Otherwise, not much change from what we saw today. And for flying weather tomorrow morning, again, that trough here coming across the Arctic coast, it just flat out went IFR for the entire area there, right to the crest of the Brooks Range. South of there, maybe a little bit of marginal VFR, but generally looking really good until you get down into the eastern Copper River Basin areas, on down to the North Gulf Coast, marginal VFR, IFR just off this west coast here in the Bering Sea, another band with that front farther to the west. For tomorrow afternoon, that edges a little bit to the east here, still have a break right through here that'll affect Fox Islands, looks pretty good, and the IFR coming down close to the north side of the Alaska Peninsula. Otherwise, marginal VFR hugging the coastline here, but Norton Sound up to the western Arctic coast to about Point Lay VFR. Marginal VFR here over the eastern Copper, or much of the Copper River Basin, even maybe to the north side there, but into the Panhandle, improving down to the south. IFR to a lesser extent, mostly on the eastern or the central Arctic coast. And for Anatuvik, batch of moisture actually sliding eastward with that trough. So starting out higher, VFR, call it, gradually deteriorating throughout the day to IFR, and that same pattern trend of conditions best in the morning, deteriorating throughout the day as that moisture moves eastward, becoming IFR for Adigan as well. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, both VFR, looking good for rainy VFR tomorrow, windy, same forecast, but the eastern Alaska range for Isabel and Mentesto, that little bit more moisture. Isabel, IFR or VFR could be marginal at times, but it looks like Mentesto has a better chance of seeing marginal VFR. And for Tanita, looking open, staying open there. Portage, starting out with IFR, or the lowest conditions will be in the morning, and that'll improve throughout the afternoon, hopefully becoming VFR by early afternoon. And for Chilkoot and White, another marginal day. Freezing levels, 4,000 feet here from the central Bering Sea right up to the coast into the interior. 2,000 feet here over the Copper River Basin, northern Panhandle, and out to the west, again, warmer air spreading into the far western Aleutians with 8,000 feet, making it to the north side of the chain. For the icing with that, rime icing areas of about 6,000 feet here, western Aleutians spreading to Adak, but tapering off towards Shemya. And for the North Gulf Coast, looks like some mixed icing here from the Copper River Basin down into Prince William Sound and across mainly the northern to central southeast coast. And the winds aloft, jet stream, again, a couple of branches, a stronger Pacific jet down here to the south, riding up about 130 knots here, cutting across the eastern Aleutians, diving back to the south, cutting into western North America, the coastline here, south of even the Queen Charlottes. And this, the trough here, slowly moving eastward, that's bringing the low flying conditions, moisture, flurries, fog to the North Slope and Arctic coast. And for the 9,000 foot level, light southeast winds off the coast, even across the Gulf of Alaska, maybe picking up to 20 knots southeast of Kodiak, but really light winds here, eastern Bering Sea, Alaska Peninsula, all through the interior, very weak circulations, 5 to 10 knots, and that's about it, right out to the Arctic coast and northward. And even out here to the west, that system not all that strong, 15 to 25 knot winds to 3,000 feet, about the same speed here, 20 to 25 out west, really light and variable eastern Bering Sea under the ridging, and light and variable over the interior as well with the weak low circulations there. Southeast 10 to 15 off the Panhandle, turn easterly along the North Gulf Coast. Could see some 20 knot winds. That's about it, dying back as you get down toward Kodiak Island. Turbulence-wise, not a lot to talk about. Maybe some isolated light turbulence with a little bit more gradient on the Berks Range. Eastern Aleutians, Western Aleutians below about 5,000 feet, but really nothing serious at all. And after the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm meteorologist Dave Snider, and joining me once again is Eric Stevens from GINA, the Geographic Information Network of Alaska, based up at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Eric, welcome back to the program.
Hey, I'm glad to be here.
And once again, you brought some wonderful satellite pictures to show us and do a little show and tell about. It's just amazing. I can get lost in satellite pictures all day. What did you bring today?
Right. Well, weather satellites, what are they good for? Yeah. Of course, there's the pretty pictures that they bring us. You know, we've got a picture here from April of 2012. Okay. The Sumi NPP satellite, it's what they call a polar orbiter, which means it covers Alaska because we're near the pole. Beautiful image. You can see a storm off of southeast Alaska, the sea ice along the Bering Sea up into the Arctic. A really nice picture, and this is important because it allows a forecaster to see where the storms are, where the ice is, where the clear areas are. You need to know where the weather is now if you're going to forecast it into the future. Exactly. So satellites give us these good pictures. This is called surveillance of the weather. And you know, that same satellite also has another picture from a little more recently, August of 2014, Tropical Storm Iselle bearing down on the Hawaiian Islands. Hawaii doesn't get hit by a whole lot of tropical storms or hurricanes. Sometimes it does. And here's a picture from the same satellite, the Sumi NPP Polar Orbiter. It shows Tropical Storm Iselle approaching the Hawaiian Islands from the southeast. You can see the storm swirling away there, and then there's the Hawaiian Islands. This is a tropical storm, not quite as strong as a hurricane because we don't see the eye wall in there. This is still a serious weather system. And all of this information comes just from that satellite picture. It's so much information, and it's wonderful to look at. You see the beauty and the awe of nature right there depicted in that weather satellite. We call it a polar orbiter because the satellite flies high over the globe. Maybe we could look here at we happen to bring the planet Earth with us. This is our satellite. A polar orbit flies really close to the Earth, maybe 800 kilometers over the Earth, and goes up over the pole and then back down, and then the Earth spins under the satellite as it goes by. That's in contrast to the geostationary birds, which are much further out. And they don't view Alaska quite as well. So we love those polar orbiter satellites here in Alaska.
So when we're a lot closer, we get much better details and imagery and an idea of a better maybe position of what's going on when it's passing right over Alaska or right over Hawaii.
Yes, exactly right. The polar orbiter gives such a good view of places like Alaska. And because it's close to the planet, there's another aspect of satellites in the polar orbit that is helpful for weather forecasting. It's an aspect that's maybe not as immediately obvious as the pretty pictures that we see. And that is the capacity for the satellite to produce what's called a sounding. That is finding the vertical profile of temperature and moisture in the atmosphere. We've all heard of weather balloons. Weather balloons are launched here in Alaska twice a day at a number of airports, everywhere from Barrow to St. Paul Island to Kodiak, Anchorage and Fairbanks, Yakutat, a number of places. Launch these balloons, and we've got a picture of a balloon being launched at an airport, and the balloon goes up. It's pulling a little package, an instrument package with it that reports temperature, pressure, humidity data back, and we use that information to help feed what are called numerical weather prediction models.
The models.
The models, right. It's a mouthful, so we just call it the models. And these computer simulations, these models are computer programs that simulate the motion of the atmosphere. Well, how does a model know what the future will be like? You have to tell the model what things are like now. And you give it all kinds of information, including information from these satellite sounders. Very important. Just how important are they? We have a recent, comparatively recent study that really brings home, and this is Superstorm Sandy.
Right.
We have a track image here of the track of Hurricane Sandy. It was down in the Caribbean around Cuba, and then it moved north over the ocean, offshore of the eastern seaboard, and then at the last minute, Sandy made what's called the left hook. It turned hard to the left and slammed into New Jersey. It was a major problem for the mid-Atlantic states, a calamity. It fused with another weather system and became known, this is not an official title, but Superstorm Sandy.
Right.
It was quite the weather event. Well, the modelers, after the event, there's a group of modelers in Europe. They have a very good model, a frustratingly good model if you're the Americans trying to pursue their excellence. They reran their model afterwards in what's called a data denial study, where they kept everything the same. So this is 6 months after Sandy, but they went back, they reran the same model, they fed the model the same initial conditions, that is telling the model, okay, here's where we think Sandy is, down near Cuba in the Caribbean. Everything was the same as it was in the real forecast, except they didn't let the model know.
No satellite data.
No satellite data. So we're going to put that over here, no satellite data for you. The resulting forecast 5 days out, back when the real Sandy was happening and the model had the satellite data, the forecast was pretty good. We've got a graphic here on the left side. We show the forecast of where Sandy would be, and that's the red bullseye on the left. It's just south of where it actually wound up hitting. Not a bad forecast from this computer simulation, 120 hours out. On the right, you see the same model, but it didn't have the satellite data to help it understand things. And the storm is way offshore. It misses. The forecast is more accurate when the model has the satellite data. So that's the idea today we want to convey, is weather satellites. They're important because they show us the pictures of where storms are. We see good examples of this. Yeah, the surveillance right now, it's great to look at those pictures. And in addition, behind the scenes, maybe not immediately obvious, but the models have to have that satellite data for them to be good forecasts. And then a meteorologist uses that information to help everyone with the forecast of where the storms will be in the future.
That is fascinating information that we can look and see where things have been, because you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. That's that old adage there. But seeing that satellites are actually helping us move forward in the weather information system is pretty amazing stuff.
You bet.
And if you want to check out Eric's satellite images that he's been talking about, whether that's something from today or last week or even much further back in Alaska history, you can easily do that yourself. Go to www.gina.alaska.edu and you can find those images there. Eric, thanks so much for joining us once again. And again, we will join you hopefully again soon for another edition of Alaska Weather Facts, where you'll tell us more really cool information about the satellites over our heads in Alaska. Thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you next time.
Welcome back. Well, light variable winds about sums it up for the inside waters here. 5 to 15 knots, southeast for Clarence Strait, south for northern Lynn Canal. Out along the coast, not too bad. Small craft advisories due to 8 to 9 foot seas, but southeast at 15 the entire stretch of the way. And for Wednesday, kind of a change here. Northeast on the south coast at 10 to 15 with 7 to 8 foot seas. And north to northwest, pretty light with the seas coming down to 6 feet. So no small craft advisories on the north coast. Lynn Canal, Glacier Bay, north 15. And more of a general north breeze now across the inside waters. For Prince William Sound tomorrow, light northeast winds or variable to northeast. Southeast 10, northern Cook Inlet turning southwest south of the Forelands, variable Kachemak Bay. Northeast 20 for the Barren Islands as well as Shelikof Strait. Next ends back up to the western North Gulf Coast. Then for Wednesday, those all turn westerly until you get here to the eastern Gulf Coast. Light variable there up in across Prince William Sound. West 15 here back to the Barren Islands, Kodiak Island, southwest 15 for Shelikof Strait. Southwest 10 knots in the afternoon for Cook Inlet back toward Augustine Island. Bristol Bay, light variable winds 10 knots all the way down to Cape Sarachev here. South side, north 15 all the way up to Sitkinak, seas 5 to 6 feet. And then for Wednesday, light westerlies for Bristol Bay, but front edging eastward here, south 20 turns southeast 20 on the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, otherwise west 15 over toward Sitkinak. Eastern Aleutians, Fox Islands, Unalaska Island, south to southeast 15 knots, picking up to 20 knots from Nikolsky on out across Adak and Atka, and generally that south wind 15 to 20 all the way out to Shemya. And for Wednesday, easterlies now 25 knots, small craft advisories Adak dropping back to 20, but still small craft advisories to Shemya, and a little bit stronger through here, 25 to 30 knots. Doesn't look like gales at this point, and small craft advisories across on Alaska Island. Southwest coast, very light winds tomorrow, north to northwest, or variable, 10 knots or 5 to 10, 15 knots St. Lawrence Island, east 15 St. Matthew Island, variable for the Pribilof becoming southeast late in the afternoon with not much of an increase. And then on Wednesday, that will be 20 knots from the southeast up across the northern Bering, east 15 for St. Lawrence Island, southeast same speed, back around to the east for the area south of Nunivak Island. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, again, kind of a light variable wind thing going on there from the central coast, northwest turn southwest to southeast, 5 to 15 knots, light north to northeast to 10 on the west side, Wales to Cape Lisburne, or actually all the way up, yeah, that's good enough, 10 to 15 knots north-northeast. Light winds Wednesday as well. Now we're down to 5 knots coming up in the forecast here, and 15 knots from Cape Thompson on the west side, north 10 knots, central and east coast dropping back to just 5 knots toward demarcation point. And for tonight, we've got kind of a trough developing into a front that'll bring more precipitation here along the coast, but not much of a wind field with that at all, so no heavy wind expected or precipitation, less on the farther east you go, and some showers lingering mostly from Yakutat to Cordova, dry Cook Inlet westward to the coast, scattered showers here along the Alaska Range, flurries with a trough and IFR conditions for the Arctic coast and North Slope, front out west weakening and moving eastward, which will really wash out tomorrow, and showers, thunderstorms, better chance of here from the northern Copper River Basin across the 40-mile country, and front weakens and stalls over the panel, but is gone the next day for sunshine. More showers and convections, isolated thunderstorms possible eastern interior, and a storm out west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.